Hey, good morning, guys. We got started planting 23 crop yesterday. Let's roll. So a lot like last year, it's dry and we are having to pre-water before we plant. Bumpy. So right now we're heading out to that big pivot, and a little surprise, it's been updated. Last winter, this pivot got updated to a newer style, well, brand new Zomatic is what it is. So we're gonna start it. I started it here a couple days ago, but the only problem about pre-watering in a cold spring is we run them during the day and they run about 10 hours, and then we got to shut them off at night because we don't want them to freeze. And last night it wouldn't have froze, but when it shows 40, around 40 or less, that's when we want to shut them off. And last night the forecast was 40, and you know what, I really don't want to freeze up a new pivot or any pivot at that point, because the way things are now, it's not like that to get anything. So you kind of have to think out quite a ways now. Go start the other one. So I didn't get all the filming of the first day just because it's hectic on the first day. You're trying to figure everything out. So the first day, well, I shouldn't say first day. There wasn't really a day there, but on Monday, I was getting it all set up, and I was hoping to get started on Monday, which was a few days ago, a couple days. Today's Wednesday. And I had all kinds of harness issues on my fertilizer pump. So that took me pretty much all day. Ran to 3 different towns, which one's 20 miles away and the other one's probably 40 miles away, just to get the right harnesses and get everything figured out. But luckily we got it going, and they had the right stuff that I'm able to get my fertilizer pump working and stuff. So have all that. I'll show you here in a second what all I had to do there. But it's easier to talk when I'm driving a little bit more. We get that other pivot started. I don't plan on starting anymore. I planted one pivot yesterday on my first day, so that's pretty good. It didn't get started till about a little afternoon. It doesn't take long once you get rolling with those, but yeah. Now it's been a really dry spring. Luckily we've had good moisture over the winter, or we had good snow over the winter, which helped us when we were strip tilling. We didn't have any issues really a lot when we were strip tilling. It was nice and mellow. It was wet or moist enough, and did a good job there. It's just over the past few weeks we had dry, cool, super windy conditions. Like every day was windy, which also makes it hard to actually pick up a camera when it's just blowing outside. You're just like, all they're gonna hear is wind. It's kind of one deterrent that I haven't been doing some of that, but a lot of busy work going on. Hopefully we can get rolling here soon. There's another pivot that's been ran. That one's gonna be no-tilled, except for the end rows. We did some strip tilling just so it loosened it up a little bit with that little guy. If you remember from the last video. Got something in my eye. So if I get the first pivot that I plan on starting off, this will be the next one. So one with the power lines through it. If you kind of recognize some of these, I'm kind of down south where I typically irrigate. The pivot I started out on was up north, kind of where Dad typically irrigates. I got that done, but the funny thing is we're super dry, but yet we're looking for dry farms to plant because we've been running the pivots, and some of them are still a little bit damp to plant. So that's our conundrum to be in. The reason why we are pre-watering, in our opinion, and kind of talking to the agronomists and stuff, if you get too dry, you're not making a very good seed trench, and it's not a very consistent, because you'll eventually hit some moist spots and some dry spots. Well, if that seed, you know, consistency is key. So if you got some seeds that aren't taken off because they're too dry, and then you got the ones that do have moisture taken off and going, then you kind of have an inconsistent stand and more issues like that. So, I mean, that's kind of why we're pre-watering, and opinions will vary on that, because I know some guys won't do it, but it's just kind of where we're landing on the subject. Oh, hey guy, how you doing? Helps if I remember to shut the power off. So this guy doesn't have very far to go. He's just got to kind of face east, a little bit northeast, to get done with his pass or his round or whatever. Let you guys watch him. Birds are out. Do the booster pump kick on. Well, there you go. Watering in April again. Hopefully we don't get a streak and do this 3 years in a row. So one thing I'm not excited about is my wings will settle overnight, which means I got like something leaking back. It happened to Tom's planter last year and they came out and fixed it. I can't remember what they did, but not that I would be able to fix it, maybe, I don't know. So here's where my fertilizer pump was. I need to get a little oil for it. But this flow meter went bad. So I changed, luckily I had one on hand. I like to keep some parts I can on hand. And then this whole harness that goes from here to there. This extension one we replaced because it actually got pinched last year. And it comes up through here. It kind of wides out and it goes up. There's a rate controller back behind there. It's like a computer, it's like a computer module, kind of like in a car or something. That goes back in there. That's kind of the brain behind doing your automatic flow rate and stuff for your fertilizer. But even that was kind of susceptible, so we replaced it as well. But the guy from John Deere is going to check our old one just to make sure it's okay. But I need to move this hose back on. So I'm going to do that now. There we go. Tied that up. Making sure everything looks kosher after the first day, nothing pinched. Okay, let's see if we're set up right. So every time we start the screen, we got to activate our command arm or control, whatever. Command Pro. You can customize this like in years before to like planning functions. This I have set for my 3 function to automatically do all this stuff in my iTech, my implement stuff. It does multiple things at the same time, so I don't have to. But when I push down, it kind of enters its planting sequence. When I lift it up, it does its exit sequence, and that's can be turned on right here. I have that set up. If I go into iTech, I'll kind of show you what that means for plant down. So here's what it means. When I hit A, I have that set up for iTech down. It'll drop the planter, and then at the same time it'll activate my number 2 hydraulic, and then 10 feet later my stock stomper up there will drop down, and then 20 feet later I have it set for my wings, just to make sure my wings are down, just for a quick tick. And then if we get out of that, I can show my planter up, and when I hit the up button, it'll raise up at the same time, pick up my wings, and then also my stock stomper at the end. So right now I'm going to get started planting the ends, which this is going to be a no-till field as well. It's just we did this end where we kind of pull trucks in, and you know, a lot of cart drive, just so it's kind of nice and loose. We use that strip tiller, that strip cat that has the shank to kind of break up the soil a little bit more. So we will get started with that. Okay, we're rolling. Kind of got some residue that blew up against there, but it should be planting through most of it. Those road cleaners take it out. Alright, kind of at a point where I want to check it. Let's see how we're doing. Sure we're poking it in the ground. Go ahead and scrape it back already. Oh, there's one. Kind of like an archaeologist, right? Oop, there's one. So we're actually maybe a touch deep. I might stick with that for now. And when we get into a more common place, I think we're at 2 1/4. I like to be anywhere 2 to 2 1/4. No, we're probably good. So, kind of check the wings, make sure they're somewhat level. Double check everything. Make sure they're closing. You know, we want it to look good. The highway's right there. You do it for the looks. Gotta love the cattle, guys. Yeah, we'll just leave this in the field. Don't be that guy. My second lap around the field, I typically do, or we typically do 32 rows around the end. It just gives us enough space to turn around, do what we need to do. Because 16 rows on a pivot, that is, on a quarter section that we have irrigated with pivots, we typically do 2 passes around the end. Now gravity irrigated is different. Maybe we'll touch on that. But you guys probably know who've been with me for a while, kind of know why we do that. But I always get a few new people that always ask why we do it. Biggest question is why we run mounted pounders mounted planters versus like pull type planters. We'll cover that here in a sec, or maybe in another video. Yeah, I'm gonna do a second lap, then I'll start up against the pivot point so we can get that moving, get the pivot out of the way, then go from there. I love auto track pin rows. Just looks beautiful when it comes up. Okay, one more check because we're going through the center. Just kind of checking to see how we're shoving trash out of the way. So I guess my idea is just getting the trash out of the way. We don't want to move any soil if we don't have to. Sometimes you kind of got to scrape that top of that ground to get underneath that trash to shove it out of the way. But right now it's looking pretty good. Basically all we're doing is tilling where the unit needs to be. There is going to be a little bit of dirt that the trash grabs with it. Looks like we're lining up good with the closing discs. You can see that trench right there. That's what I was talking about. We want to have moisture to kind of create that trench, because if you get too powder dry, that just crumbles and then you're laying your seed in the dry dirt. It just stinks. Oops, found one already. Like I said, we want to be 2 inches. Kind of do earthworm archaeologist dig here. Kind of like we're digging for a dinosaur bone. I disturbed it. I always like to make sure that it's in its uninterrupted space so I can tell exactly. That's another thing too, is you want to have a good seed to soil contact. Yeah, there he is. I'm going to take our measuring tape. Yeah, I think that's where we want to be, 2 inches, that 2 1/4. See, he's tucked in there pretty nice. I mean, there might be every once in a while some smearing of that sidewall. That's kind of why I run that pokey well on the one side. It'll tend to crumble it. It's kind of a in between deal. We're not all in by running it on both sides, but enough that if we do get into those conditions, it's kind of crumbling off to the side. So you can kind of, it's crumbling pretty good, but every once in a while you kind of see where the rubber tire maybe creates a little bit of a pack to it, where that pokey wheel crumbles it along the side. So in no-till, you're not always as consistent, so when you get to these like high residue areas, you still want to scrape it back. Sorry if I'm not catching this on camera. I'm going to scrape it back. Make sure we're getting it in the ground. Yep, so that looks pretty good. Got good moisture. The reason why we chose this field to do a no-till is because the residue isn't super terrible and it's pretty smooth out here. We want a good consistent seed bed. The other ones, we like to strip till to kind of create a consistent seed bed. But if we don't have to, yeah, there we go. The only problem, we had so much wind that it'll kind of clump up some of our residue every once in a while. What are you gonna do? My shoulder. Hit my shoulder on that doohickey. Gotta do that Nebraska thing. Well, look who graced us with her presents today. Yeah. Yeah.
It's my birthday.
It's your birthday? Well, I don't know if it's your birthday, but every day's a birthday for you, ain't it? Life's good. Yeah? Oh, you got presents? Well, I tell you what. Oh, bumpy, huh? Yeah, pretty bumpy. Are you gonna drive a tractor when you're older? Yeah? Like on the last video, like cousin Micah? No? Oh, yeah, okay. All right. Awesome. Are we doing a good job?
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right. Can you give us a thumbs up? All right. Awesome. Well, started a new field. This one is strip tilled. I have slightly different attire on. I got a deal tonight, but I think we'll wrap it up here. We got more to go through. But yeah, we got a little more planted today. We got started. That's always the fun thing to get going. Another season. And thanks for watching. We'll catch you on the next one.